E31 fans, welcome back. I shouldn't have left you. Step two. This episode will be dedicated to just basically recouping and reconnecting with this swap. Taking a bit of a break from the E24 LT1, I'm going to be working on this. This guy has been painted, it's been sanded, and now it just needs to be final sanded and then polished back up. We have this S85 here. We're going to be doing some preventative maintenance on it. We've already done the rod bearings, and now we're going to be taking this engine, putting it back in the car for another test fit, because we got to finish things like steering column. We have to finish the front sway bar, and we need to get the DSC module installed from the E92. That's right. We're going to be doing the MK60 E5 installation, which is going to be awesome. It's got a lot of cool features that the MK60 does not have. We got hill hold, we're gonna have rain braking, and all these other cool types of features that are gonna be part of this that modernizes the feel of the E31. There's gonna be a lot of work involved with that, but I'm probably gonna end up doing a dedicated video on it. But today, in this episode, we're just going to revisit what we need to do in order to get this thing to first start, which is my goal in the next month, or at least in a couple more videos, we'll end up getting to a first start on this S85. We got a coolant pump here that we need to swap out. We have a couple of other preventative maintenance items on this as well, and we're going to be working on seats, we're going to be working on headliner. I'm very, very excited to share this all with you. So first, let's talk about some of the things that I've done behind the scenes. I'll only recap on this for about 30 to 45 seconds, but what I've done is I have completely welded up the entire mid pipe. Both of the headers are completely welded up, and we need to install that back on the S85. I TIG welded everything. As you can see here, I've done a lot of TIG welding down here on the welds. Everything is pie cut. Let's talk about what I need to do in order to finish the exhaust, right? I mean, because there is some work that's still needed here. I dropped this one, which is a travesty. I dropped it, and you can see that the tip is no longer aligned. It's completely floating now. So I got to fix this, but in order to do this and figure out where it needs to go, I need to put it back in the car. But look at all these pie cuts that need to be welded. So I got to weld all these up. And speaking of welders, I got myself a new Lincoln Electric. This is a 200 amp square wave TIG welder. TIG basically TIGs everything. But another thing, I got another tank, a big tank. This is a 330 cubic foot tank, as opposed to the old, this is I think a 55 cubic foot tank. From 55 to 330, that's like 6 to 7 times more volume. And let me tell you, it's also 1/3 of the price. Actually, this is cheaper. Why? Because I went on a lease. You can lease these things. So I gave them my credit application. I got a good deal. And I am paying $43 a year to lease this tank. Fill-ups are way less frequent now. I don't have to make all these trips back to the welding shop. And this tank, actually, believe it or not, just to buy the tank is like $200, just to buy the tank to own. So it almost like made sense. I mean, literally 4 years from now is when I'm going to end up breaking even on a tank that I buy, as opposed to leasing one that's 4 to 5, 6 times bigger. So I'm very, very excited about the fact that I got a new tank, many less trips, and I can just weld my heart away. So let's take a look at some of these TIG welds here. I'm actually getting better. I did not backflow the tubing, or I've used very little filler wire, but I don't really need to use filler wire when I'm just you know, getting 2 pieces of buttered up stainless steel together in the same piece. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with the exhaust, and yeah, I got to put it back on. I got to put the engine in order to do that. So let's talk about getting the engine in as well. So let's talk for a little bit about preventative maintenance. But before we do that, I want to let you know my daughter painted my nails. What do you think? These are blue and these are green. She's actually getting better, although I think she definitely can have room for improvement. Better than that paint job, that's for damn sure. But hey, we got some preventative maintenance that we need to do on this S85. Very high level stuff. We're talking about water pump. We're going to be going to a motor rad thermostat that's going to have the S85 run just a little bit hotter. And it's going to be complemented with some Redline synthetic 5W50. Very, very good, very popular oil for the S85. I would be remiss if I didn't install this, put this oil into this engine, and using the Motor Coat Hyper Lubricant. It's a heavy duty, basically use like a little bit of that guy per gallon or per quart of that. So I'm not using the whole thing in terms of that ratio, but I'm gonna be using a lot of it. I have some valve cover gaskets to do as well. And yeah, so take a look at this. It's getting old. I mean, look at this. This would have leaked in a heartbeat. I mean, the O-ring is just completely shot, so I gotta pry this thing out. It's probably not gonna be easy. Reinstall all this, and then get this puppy sitting inside the bay. Essentially everything's been removed. I'm keeping the plastic on the rear windshield and the front windshield because I don't want anything to be damaged there. I do plan to polish all of this up. Take a look at this though. I mean, this is a really nice 1000 grit sanded down door. Actually, the whole car is basically sanded down. I have to be very careful about not going through the 5 stages of clear coat that I put down here, but I feel like this is gonna buff back up to a really nice shine. And we'll actually see some of that in either this episode or next. So there'll be more information and at least some eye candy coming out for that. As far as the S85 goes, I need to put this thing in, and we need to start working on a few additional items. But we need to start cleaning this up. We need to clean this up, right? We got wire bundles hanging all over the place, vacuum lines. We got some things we gotta cut out, some things we have to weld, and then we can put this guy in the bay. Valve covers have been replaced. Everything is basically ready to take this engine and throw it into this bay. We got to fix that subframe and get that installed as well. But before we do any of that, I want to do some engine bay work for just a couple minutes. We have some sound deadening that we need to remove right here. And we need to weld up these guys as well. And I kind of want to get rid of some of this other stuff that's here that's kind of like noise that's in the way that I'll end up reinstalling later. So let's do a time lapse of all that stuff that I need to do here for just a few seconds and just get this engine ready for installation into this bay, set it in and see where everything fits. So now that we got the lower thrust arm mounts on the car fully welded, let's take a look and see if we can get the S85 in there and take a look and see what we did with the steering column, because the steering column is so important to the proper functionality of any car that it needs to be perfect. Let's take a look. All right, there it is. S85 is now installed. The steering column has also been fully devised. We're gonna take the S85 out and we're gonna fool around with the steering column a little bit. We'll do some quick video of how it looks. But I'm telling you, it looks and it works perfect. There is no interference. Everything works perfectly. The headers did need to be modified, but other than that, it was actually pretty easy to do the steering column. So let's take it out now that we know that we have no interferences, and let's turn the wheel and make sure everything's good. talking brake boosters is really important here because we're going to be upgrading our Hydro Boost system, which is basically taking power steering fluid in order to provide the power braking for the brakes, and going to an air vacuum system, which is traditionally found on most BMWs nowadays. In fact, most cars have them. What we're going to be doing, I thought initially, was to take the 135i booster, which is like an 8.5, 9-inch double booster diameter, and try to stick it in here and push it over as far outward as possible because there is a direct interference with the cylinder head and the booster. I've done the measurements on this and I found that this is actually, no matter how far I push this over, it's still going to interfere, which means that this booster isn't going to work. And this master cylinder is meant for the brakes of the 135i, which is what I have, the big calipers from the 135i, the E82. So this master cylinder needs to stay, but I won't be able to use this booster. So here's what I have as an alternative solution. Here is a 7-inch universal booster. Now remember, the booster, all it's supposed to do is create a vacuum to make the pedal push easier when you apply the brakes. There's a lot of people that actually go boosterless brakes completely, which basically removes the entire boosting assistance, makes the brakes a lot harder to press. So a 7-inch double booster is not going to have as much braking assistance as an 8.5 or 9-inch double booster from the factory 135, but it's still going to be just enough for me to get what I need. And I'm going to be able to take the 135i master cylinder here and mate it up to the bolt pattern of this universal booster. This booster is 7 inches, which saves me about 1.5 inches to 2 inches of diameter. So this might be able to fit factory there like that, but even if I have to, as a worst case scenario, move it over just a tiny bit, I'm not worried about that. I'm really not worried about it. And the input shaft and the output will be able to, I will make that compatible by, if I have to make any type of custom bracketry or welding necessary in order to get this to fit, I'll do it. So I think that I'm in a really good spot to use this guy. Not really crazy about the color, and they do come in black and they also come in chrome. So I might just do something else to make it a little less conspicuous. And I think I can get this to adapt. So let's see what I can do to get this mounted on the firewall at a minimum. And if I have to make any brake pedal modifications later by shifting over the rotational point just a tiny bit to meet this, that's easy to do. All right, the brake booster is now installed. Now, I think I probably could push it over a little bit more to the outside, but I'm going to start having interferences at the brake pedal assembly there, where I'm going to have to make some major changes to the actual bracketry that's behind the firewall. But for now, I think it's going to be okay. I think that the location of the booster is going to be all right. So I want to try getting the S85 back in here and see what kind of interferences I'm looking at now that I have the booster installed. So let's give it a shot. So the engine is now basically fully in place. As you can see, I had a jack underneath the backside of the oil pan that I needed to adjust so I can get the right, angle of the engine, because I don't have the transmission in there to figure out the angle. But as you can see, I have plenty of room to the booster, which is awesome. Getting the engine in and out with the booster in place is successful. It's on its own weight. As you can see here, I can move this around, so it's basically sitting on its own weight. This, in my mind, was a success. In the next video that we work on the S85 part, we're going to end up working on continued brake booster. Now that we realize that we're kind of out of the woods now with the steering column and the brake booster, now it's just a matter of getting a master cylinder to install and getting that brake pedal to work so we can have a full working brake system. We're also going to get the DSC module, the MK60E5, installed down below where the existing ABS was on the E31, and we're going to be adapting that for the most modern electronics on the E31 for stability and handling. So I'm really excited about moving forward with that. Guys, we got a lot of cool stuff on this series. I'm really looking forward to moving forward with this episode, with this swap, and really getting this thing sitting on its own weight and driving on its own power. Stick around, guys.